Okay. So what you do, I'm recording this too. I hit the start analysis. So I upload a gene list. And I tell it whether it's their nomenclature is down here. If it's everything, it's the background. If it's the subset, it's the gene list. They have built-in ones if you're working with a sequenced genome, but we do not. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our Excel sheet. Okay. This column here is if you remember from a few minutes ago, if I highlight this, I'm copying 5051 Swiss Pro ID numbers for the annotated genes of our entire transcriptome. Okay? I'm going into here, I'm pasting that list. It's not smart enough to know exactly what that code represents, but that is you could use all of these codes. That happens to be the Unipro accession code. That is what I call my background, and I hit submit list. Okay. I hope it doesn't crash. And this is very crude, but visually you should be able to understand this. If I take this list which is 885, which was the number you got, so I'm on track, and I copy that. This is still working, so I will be patient, maybe. I want to. Okay. I know that it's got my gene list, but it says the current background is Homo sapiens. That's the default. Okay. So that's not a true representation of all the proteins I'm dealing with. So my first paste didn't work. Okay, I was too impatient. Okay, so I'm gonna go back and try one more time. So you could select from the background, you could select from all of these. But again, I'm going to try again to okay, I was too fast, and I forgot to tell it the accession number. So it's if I forgot to tell it the type. So it's a Okay. Okay. I'll try one more time. Okay. This time I won't be so fast, and I'll tell it it's a Unipro session. I tell it that this is the background. I'll cross my fingers. Ta-da. Okay? Alright, so I feel comfortable now. So now I've got my gene list, I've got my custom background. Okay? And there's several things you can do. Look at gene enrichment for gene ontology. So these are all the enriched for the biological processes that are enriched. Okay? And so it gives you a list based on the statistical values, the p-values, into minis. The most is amine biosynthetic processes, and on and on and on. You can download this data. Okay. For the sake of for recording purposes. Alright, I'm just going to show you a few things you can do. You click on that. It kind of breaks it down on the accession number and all the genes and the organisms that they're associated with. We can go back. You can look at the cellular component. You can look at what pathways are enriched. So in terms of the KEGG pathways you might have heard of, the most enriched one is this amino acid tRNA biosynthesis, purine metabolism. You can click on it. You can get a nice picture of a path, and as promised, blinky lights. So these are the actual proteins in this pathway that are enriched. So they're enriched in the library that is or enriched in the gene set that is female only. You could spend the rest of the afternoon just kind of clicking and exploring on these different ways. They have different data sets in here in terms of this is using the Panther pathway classification. I don't know if they're necessarily, I don't think there's mass, but it tells you the pathways that are enriched in the female specific one. If you want to look at the protein domains that are enriched that are in the female only, it has that information. This is from the Intrapro database. Functional categories, disease, might be interested depending on your price. So mainly I look at gene ontologies and the pathways. I think are the most relevant and interesting. There's different levels why there's so many. So this is cellular component. So that's enriched for plasma membrane proteins. Okay, you can click on this to see how many. There's different levels because, as I mentioned, it's a hierarchical system. It's not too much difference between them all. This one is what they kind of recommend. This is kind of like the level that they determined a nice balance in terms of way too specific and too general. Okay? So that's normally what we use.
Is that the general or is it just for this particular data set?
This is all this information is referring to what is enriched in the female only context,
Yeah.
based solely on annotating it to the Swiss Pro.
Yeah.
So I gave it all of the Swiss Pros, and then that's the background, big list, and then I gave it the Swiss Pros proteins for the female, the 800 for female only, and then that's what it did the analysis on.
Yeah, but what I want to say is that particular level is calculated for this particular data set?
Yes.
Or,
No, this is just this is just based on what I just uploaded. Okay, it doesn't stay forever. It you lose it off the server in maybe a day, but you can download the files. But that's normally what we do: upload or download the files, and then. But I'm just showing you what you can do. You can look at expression. You know, again, this is all. Think about it. All this has is Swiss Pro IDs. That's all I gave it. So this is basing all of its assessment based on the closest annotation of our GUI duck transcriptome. And we can go back and look and see what e-value we use. But those are the kind of things that's why it's important to understand the full process to know what it's basing its information on. This does not know we're looking at GUI duck. It just knows what the best hit is. And it also just does analysis on all the terms that are associated with this. So you could click forever. So this tells us the gene, and tells us what it does. I downloaded this file. This is the first one I downloaded. Okay, this is normally the one I start out with looking at, is those enriched biological processes in the the female gonad. Okay. So now that's the file. That's the URL. So I'm going to curl that, and I'm going to open that up in Excel so you can see what it looks like. Okay.